I'm actually wondering if you can speak to the music industry, because I imagine that there's this push and pull between sort of like creative expression and freedom versus like paying the bills and conforming to some degree in a system that you've experienced.
First of all, I'm really lucky that I had like, some success with songs, Home in particular, that I get to be like, that I get to talk shit as if I'm living in, the 1990s and I'm fucking Kurt Cobain or something. I get to toe a line of, selling out and all those concepts that I was raised believing in. I get to sort of, still give them a little love. Whereas, if I hadn't had success, I'd be out here probably hustling a lot harder and not caring as much about, the moralistic implications of doing an Amex commercial or whatever the case is, or just being a minstrel of the court, being a minstrel of the Medici. And the new Medici, by the way, are Coca-Cola. Nobody just really understands it. But Coke has all kinds of measures out there, for instance, where they're like fueling these little pockets of artists to make really cool shit. They're like the Medici. The Medici were funding, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and all that. Meanwhile, they're, destroying the papacy and handing out indulgences and just just running amok. So it's a similar situation. And because, what's an interesting topic really that's hard to parse is the disintermediation, the democratization of music, where now any kid can just make shit sound incredible within seconds of buying an app. You just buy an app, you say, I want that beat. Ooh, the beat sounds dope. I'm a producer. And that's real. I was at a South by Southwest panel and a kid raised his hand. He's like, hey, and he was being like, ooh, yes, it's so tough to be a producer. And he's like, I know, Alex, how hard it is to produce. And I was like, yeah, finally. Okay, good. And this is a young kid. I'm like, good, the young generation who really knows. He's like, to use Apple loops and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if you know what Apple loops are, but they're like literally a press play, like out of the box, pre-programmed like tracks. And he was telling me how hard it was to use that. And so it's this amazing blessing. Yesterday, my daughter made this incredible song with this app made for kids where you just like do the do, 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 and it's just like this hot beat. Now, is that amazing? Yes, of course, it's incredible. Does that condense the amount of plurality and differentiation and experimentation? I worked with Avicii once, who I love, and he had a kick that he used on a song we were making. I was like, oh, that's a great kick. He's like, yeah, it took me years to find. And the implication was, that is my kick. That's the kick I use. It's the kick that I found. I've looked all my life for this kick, and now it's the kick I use. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But okay. And then since his death, I've been contacted by a lot of like Avicii's fans who are really great people. And they want me to finish some of these demos that I had made with him. And they send me packs of sounds that are Avicii sounds that they use, that they want me to use. In other words, at a certain point, and here's an interesting fact. This was a fact a few years back. The top 10 most played songs at radio of all time were put out in the last 10 years. I'm gonna repeat that. The top 10 songs played on radio ever were put out in the last 10 years. To give you a sense of the amount and degree of homogeneity that's happening in popular culture, where we're listening to the same stuff that we're listening to has all been made with the exact same sounds, same kicks, same snares, a group of like maybe 5 snares, 12 kicks, 3 hi-hats, And that's what we're working with. And, you know, and we end up losing, just like in the physical space, where if you travel the country, every city is looking more and more like the other, from strip malls and, you know, Starbucks and all that, to just city planning. And in music, so we're losing all that. So when you ask me, you know, how I feel about the power differentials in music making and labels, I no longer really care about the man, quote unquote. It's more about, well, here we come to individualism. Here we come to the need, for my sense that the world needs more plurality, more individualism in the creative sense. So I'm trying to not use those hats. I'm trying to use weird shit. I'm trying to introduce stuff that is not the thing that's being introduced. And yet, what's really kind of interesting is those things are so easy to use that I end up using them anyway, but I try and use them in interesting ways. It's just, it's almost like technology is, it's almost like individualism is a ruse. That individualism, that individualistic atomization of reality, when I talk about it as if it's some reified space, the real reality of things is it's just total abstraction. And I think that that's important for everybody to understand. Individualism is an abstraction. It's an AR, augmented layer on top of reality that we either choose to buy into or not. But when you think that you're being an individual by purchasing a shirt at H&M that 5 million other people are walking around with, you're obviously living in an abstraction. When you're using a kick and a snare to make a song that you think is super individualistic, you're obviously living in an abstraction. And even if you think you create your own reality, but you're born into wealth, or personal manifestation doesn't necessarily equal your white privilege, you're living in an abstraction. If you don't see racism as a property of economic predation, you're living in an abstraction. And all of these abstract levels of identity are essentially what I think I would like to see humanity sort of just take a break from. I love creativity. I love the creative mind. I love individualism. But actually, the individualistic drive is having this accidentally homogenizing effect and ripping us of our pluralism.